everyone, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I have a guest. His name, he has Charles,
Hello.
but we call you Sean. You have Charles on your
Sean's,
thing.
yeah. Charles is my first name, but Sean's my middle. And I use my initials for my YouTube channel of CLSB Politics.
There we go.
So
And I
that's how
have
you
all
can
of that
find me.
information underneath in my comments on how to get to his channel, how what he does on his channel. He does a lot of political voting system, all that good stuff. So definitely go check that out. But this is going to be fun. This is really going to be fun. They tell us that voting is simple. But Sean's about to reveal what really happens behind the curtains, and it's not what you think. So hang in there, everyone. We're going to go through some questions, and he is going to do a mock-up campaign for himself. He's going to pick the state, he's going to pick the county, he's going to do what he would do if he was a candidate running for office. So, and he's even going to pick the office he's gonna run for. So hang in there. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Sean, and he is going to elaborate on his campaign as if he is running. And so he's going to tell us what county, what district, what office he's going to run for, and how he's going to lay out his campaign and what he would do because he has tons, and I'm talking tons of information and experience in elections. He's been involved in so many of them, and he knows he sees the good and he sees the bad. So take it over. Go ahead.
So, all right. Well, if I were running for office, I would and I was told not to pick anything in Texas, but there's not a lot to run in Texas anyway. But Wisconsin's where I would go. And the reason I would choose Wisconsin is because, for one, I think it's a state that's going more blue. Uh, with all of the hits that the Trump administration's making on agriculture and manufacturing, Wisconsin's one of those states where both of those two overlap, and you end up with kind of a perfect storm of economic turmoil created by the Trump and Republicans. So I think it's a great state to run in right now. And I would run in Congressional District 3, which is basically along the western border of Wisconsin, and it butts up right against Madison. And uh, and the reason I like it is because Congressional District 3 has five state house seats and a state senate seat that I think I could also flip. Because what you want to do is you want to look for a district where there's other races inside that district that are pliable, that have voter disposition that you can probably sway to the left. And with five other state house seats, a state senate seat mixed in with the money from that congressional seat, I think it would be it'd be a good pick. And I also like the congressional first in Wisconsin, but the third is the one I would pick because it's the western side. It's a much larger district than you would think. So it means it's going to be more expensive because you're going to have headquarters in various different places throughout the district to make your program more economical and also strategic. But that's what I would do. I would knock on doors. I would knock on, so it's about 300,000 registered voters. That translates to about 220,000 doors, most of which it's going to be urban, suburban, and a bunch of rural. So it's going to be houses, which is great. I love suburban and I love rural because it's doors. You don't have to go upstairs. You don't have to worry about buildings. Not much anyway. And so I would go heavy on the field. I would do four passes.
What would you
And
campaign
that,
on? What would you campaign on?
oh,
Like, what
well, I
would you
would
be
campaign on
your
opening
main?
up markets for Wisconsin. It's super opening up markets for our goods, not closing markets. The Trump administration's all about tariffs and closing markets. Well, that's not how any of us make money, especially in the agriculture department. Um, Wisconsin's a top 10 soybean producing state. Illinois is the largest soybean producing state. And if you look at soy production in this country, it's insanely huge. It's a multi-billion dollar industry. It's I think 3-4% of GDP is soybeans, just that. And and
So
then we
what
have
would you
the
tell them? What would you be a slogan? What would you
oh,
tell them?
get rid of tariffs. Get rid of tariffs. I would also tell them that we would undo the big terrible bill they passed that gutted rural hospitals for funding. I'd
Hmm.
reopen up Medicaid and Medicare,
Hmm.
saying that because those hospitals are jobs,
Hmm.
they're some of the highest paying jobs in rural America, never mind Wisconsin. But you lose a rural hospital, you've lost you're going to lose restaurant jobs, you're going to lose the housing market's going to go straight down. Those jobs are so important that they affect all this other stuff underneath it. And they're seeing it in Kentucky, they're seeing it in Louisiana, we're seeing it in Texas. Anyone with a large rural hospital community is being affected right now.
Right.
And I would definitely do healthcare, keep those jobs. So not only is it a healthcare issue, it's a jobs issue. Then open up markets to our agriculture,
Hmm.
open up create a legal pathway for workers to go from one country into ours to work in the agricultural district. I'd do a cutout just for agriculture for workers coming from out of country. Why not?
Right. So you have a
I'm,
platform. So what you'll do is you pick the district, you go in, you have to live there, right?
you do have to live there, and so what I would do is I'd have a nice house, of course, but I would make sure that uh, I would do field first
But you have to live
because
the platform. You have to go in, you have to
see, the thing
register,
is,
you have to
it's
live there.
almost cart before horse.
Yeah.
Platform is great, and I know what I want to run on.
Right, right.
But what I need to do is I need to find out where the pain is
Uh-huh.
because that's going to tell me how to move my platform
Hmm.
forward. And the best way to do that is with a field program to knock on doors
Hmm.
because you can ask the questions. Why do you vote? What is your most important issue right now? Is it, and it's going to be education, healthcare, housing, jobs. And it's going to be a iteration of one of those four.
So
But what is the
statistically,
jobs? Is
yeah,
it agriculture jobs? Is it healthcare jobs?
right.
So it's going to be different. And
So
you're going to
here's
learn that so go ahead.
Yeah, he's here. So I just kind of slow down just a little bit so that we can kind of compartmentalize. So
Sure.
now that you're there, you live there, you've done everything you need to do. You're in the campaign. Now you're going to look at the community and see where the pain is. You're going to see where they need help, what needs to do that. So now you're going to use your knowledge of statistics. Statistically, knocking on doors works, right?
Yep.
Statistically, running like doing something else. So statistically, how would you like bam bam like do your
So what I
campaign?
would do is I
Is
would
that
find out where the population centers are,
okay?
right? We're looking for housing density. And that density will tell me how efficient and how many doors per hour my canvassers can knock. And keep in mind, I've got two different canvassing programs going. I've got a volunteer program, which is great, and its data sits in one silo. And then I have a paid field program, which does its own thing, and its data sits in a different silo. And the reason you do that is because your volunteer field program, the life of a campaign, a volunteer is going to hit maybe 500 doors total. A paid canvasser will hit 500 doors that week. So by the time your paid canvassers knocked on doors for a month, they've had 500 conversations, whereas your volunteer probably has had a few dozen. So which canvasser do you think is going to be better at getting information out of voters? It's going
And
to be your paid canvasser.
statistically, when you're knocking on doors and what's the first conversation, then what works? Because I don't like anybody knocking on my door. You knock on my door, I'm about to just cuss you out. I don't care if who you are, what you're doing, if I don't know you're coming, right? So how do you get in? With me, it wouldn't work. I'd be like, go away. I don't care.
So the first thing we do is we say we're not selling anything.
Uh-huh.
And we also have identification on our canvassers for like our t-shirts and buttons, and they know what we're about.
Ah,
And we're absolutely not selling anything. So technically, all those signs that says, do not knock for solicitation, we're not soliciting anything.
so you
We're
make sure that you
literally
up front,
doing,
you're like, we're here for the campaign. We're here to talk politics with you.
yeah.
Like
We
get
actually,
in.
the way that we train our canvassers is to make sure that you ask, people like to talk about themselves.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we're most interested in.
Mm-hmm.
We're interested in learning about that person, that very specific voter,
Yeah.
and getting information out of them. And I try to keep it to three, maybe four questions,
Mm.
but for a couple reasons. One, that's about the attention span of anyone on their front porch. Two, I need to go to a new door.
Mm-hmm.
It's a number of conversations.
Okay.
As an algorithm, you're able to say, you know, if you ask four questions and you knock on 20,000 doors. Well, you've asked 80,000 questions. Now, most polling, like a lot of the national polling you see, are based on 1,500 people. My field programs are based on 15,000 people. My data is 1,000 times more accurate. Like my plus, when you look at polls and you see plus or minus 3%, my plus or minus is a fraction of 1%. I know by the time I've knocked on 20,000 doors in a given community, I know exactly how to win that election.
Great.
I
Okay,
know
so
what issues work.
that's where you're gonna get your raw data from, is from the
Mhm.
mouth of the people you're knocking on the door. So that is gonna be your biggest portion of your campaign and how to get that done. So after you are initiated that and you already have your platform and you have your four questions, so now where do you go? What do
So
you
I take all that data and I hand that to my media guy.
hmm
My media guy is going to take all those answers. Like, for example, we knocked on about 400,000 doors in Milwaukee back in 2024. By the way, if you ever want to be king of Milwaukee, all you have to do is fix the potholes.
Same
Wasn't
in
even an answer
Colorado.
on our 70% of our responses. What's the one thing we could do to change your life and make your life a better place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin? Fix the potholes. If you fix the potholes in Wisconsin, you will be king of Milwaukee, and they'll just make the position for you, and you'll be elected for life
There you go.
because you fix the potholes. And then after that 70%, that last 30% was healthcare, jobs, the economy. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, yeah.
potholes were above all of those.
Same here in
So,
Colorado. We have a thing about potholes too. So you got this.
so
That's
I always call it the
interesting.
pothole enigma. Like you don't know what's going to be the one thing,
We
you
ruined a
know?
lot of cars over potholes here in Colorado.
It costs people money for time. I learned all this.
Yeah,
It's
tires,
tires, it's
cars.
suspension. It causes accidents because people weave out of the way of potholes
Yes.
and hit other cars.
So
There's a
true.
huge built-in cost of doing business in a given community if they have huge amounts of potholes in their infrastructure.
Oh yeah.
I learned this in Milwaukee because I asked 400,000 people questions.
So that's fantastic. So I love this part. So you're getting there, and then the raw data. The raw data is just like the most
Goes to my
important.
media guy.
Goes to
And the
your
media
media
guy
guy.
parses it out and
Uh-huh.
says, okay, the best way to attack, we'll just keep using potholes. The best way to attack potholes, okay, so we know this age group, this economic status, because we have zip codes on everybody, so we know where their economics are. Because quite honestly, there are rich neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods, and we can do all that. We have all that data. We know a lot more just by knowing a person's answers and where they are in that geography. We know so much more just beyond that. We know how much they make a year. We know what schools their kids go to. We know if they've got kids. I mean, you name it. We know, we learn a lot.
Right, right.
And so we can cross-reference all that. And our media guys will cross-reference all that and come out with the best strategy for media buys depending on the market.
Mm-hmm.
We can even geomap
Mm-hmm.
the type of issues street to street
Mm-hmm.
because what it is, most people are consuming their information via streaming.
Right.
So if you're streaming on Hulu or Prime or Disney Plus and you see commercials, all those commercials can be literally your
Sure.
address specifically can be targeted for a very specific commercial.
Sure.
And we can do the same thing in politics. So I have a media guy who just does that.
Okay. So you got raw
And
data. Now you hand it over to media guy. He does his thing. So now what do you do as a person? Now that you have
as a
all of the
candidate,
feelers out, what does the
right.
candidate do?
Well, what we do is we go out and we meet with groups, constituencies. We go to every community event you can possibly imagine. The calendar is now bleeding color. Your campaign calendar, candidates. So first thing is I'm running for Congress. So that means every day, 7 days a week, I spend 4 hours a day on a phone calling for money
Right.
because I know I have to raise $45,000 a week to run this campaign.
Right. Right.
So 4 hours every day. So what's 7 times 4? 28 hours a week I'm on phones.
Okay. So you're on
And then
phone
there's another, and
money
then there's 30 hours of going to events
events.
and hosting parties and doing coffees and doing meetups and forums and town halls and all of that stuff. And that's 30 to 40 hours a day.
And
I
so
mean, a week.
statistically, does that really work or everything like statistically, which one
So
is working? Are they all in tandem and they're working
they
together?
all have to, your call time has to work because you got to raise money because that's how you're paying your canvassers to knock on the doors to gather the data. Also, that's how you're paying for the media to use the data that you collected. And you have to buy the spots on television and YouTube and Hulu and everywhere else so that you can reach those voters that live in the high density residential, i.e., apartments, condos, that you can't go knocking on,
Right.
right? Those are impossible to knock on. There are ways around that and there are strategies to get around that, but it's very difficult. And it's something that I work on very hard in when I'm doing building out field programs to strategize around. We want to buy media for them because I mean, you can knock on 50 or 60 doors an hour in those apartment complexes.
Right.
You just can't get into them.
Right.
And whereas in like a normal housing project, the number is somewhere between 15 and 20 doors an hour. So
Right.
that tells you it's like 3 times more efficient in apartment complexes than it is in houses because you don't have any front yards to deal with.
So
It's going up and down the front yards. Yeah.
here's my question is, when you're knocking on a door, do you know if they're registered or not?
Absolutely. I know everything. I know how old they are. I know how many registered voters are behind that door. Actually, what I do when I knock on that door is to verify that.
Hmm.
And if there are voters that have moved, that's also equally useful information.
Right.
So now I don't have to geomark that house for advertising. Lord knows I don't have to put a stamp on anything, which is insanely expensive, and mail to them.
Hmm.
Because, mail is the least most efficient way to campaign. The Brookings Institute looked at 2,000 campaigns and said that mail was statistically irrelevant. So, and a lot of your viewers are going to go, oh my God, I get so much mail. What do you do with that mail?
I throw it away.
It shows up, it goes from your mailbox to you, and from you to your recycling bin.
Yep.
And it used to be better when people used to get paper bills, but now with e-bill, there's literally nothing in your mailbox that doesn't have a smiley face on it that you even care about.
Right.
It's got to be a delivery like by Prime or but you already know it's coming because there's an app that's telling you it's coming. So anything that shows up in your mailbox, 9 times out of 10, is garbage, and you
Right.
treat it as such.
So that's good. So that's your lowest priority is that if you don't get to that, no big deal. So your lowest
And
priority.
it's
You
mail's the most expensive thing.
it
Yeah.
is. Yeah. So we have priority, you have this. Now you're campaigning out. Okay, so now you're getting close to the election. And you have now data. You know pretty much if you're going to win or not, don't you?
Well, actually, if I'm running my campaign the way I would want to, I would absolutely know that. And this is how I would know that.
Okay.
By this time, let's just say we're in mid-October,
Right. You
right?
are
We're two
you are
weeks away
two
from
weeks
the
out.
election.
Yeah.
2 weeks out. Early voting has started,
Yep.
right? And I'm getting data pulls from the voter the voter registration office for my race every day now
Yeah.
because they post that every 24 hours. I'm cross-referencing it against every single person I've spoken to that has said that they're going to vote for me. And the reason I know they're going to vote for me is because I'm on my fourth pass for canvassing.
Right.
I've knocked on every door that I was going to knock on 4 times.
Right.
So this fourth pass I'm doing right now, and I'm about to start what's called the GOTV pass, get out the vote pass in my field program. This fourth pass is to talk to every single person that I've already spoken to that had said that they were going to vote for me. And then I tell them to bring a friend.
Yeah.
And then, so every time that person votes, I put them as a, we just won that vote because they said that they were going to vote for us. And all you can do is trust people at this point. So
So
then you're on your,
here's my thing is they say that they can tell that you voted, but they can't tell who you voted for.
right, right, right. Like if it's a primary, then we know if you voted in a Republican primary or a Democratic primary.
Okay,
But
that
if
makes
it's
sense.
general, we just know you voted.
Yeah.
We don't even know how down ticket you voted. You could have walked in and voted one and walked out.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot
Okay.
of people do that too.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Okay, so that's awesome. I want to kind of leave it there because you've already kind of like walked through a campaign that you would actually campaign for. I know you're not going to
That
run
was a
for
rough
office.
walkthrough, but yeah.
Yeah, it is a rough off. I mean, there's so much more, but we just don't have the time,
Well, let me give your listeners one piece of advice if they're even thinking
Sure.
about running for office. If you really want to know what you're going to do, get a spreadsheet, get a Google Calendar or a spreadsheet calendar out. Start on election day and work your way back to whatever the date is that you're currently doing that. And then you walk forward through that same calendar. By the time you get back to election day, and this it takes hours to do this, you know how you're going to win your race.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good piece of advice.
And that's the thing is that's the reason why and this is just and we're gonna like touch this like slightly. A lot of Democrats get a little upset about Democrats because they're not doing that. So we know that we need to amp to let them know that we want them to get better at it. And we all know that. We all know that they do that. All right, so we're going to switch over to some questions that we have
All
about that.
right.
And what I did is I tried to gather as many, smart, unexpected questions about elections and voting. He may have already covered a little bit of them, but he's going to give us a little explanation on some of these questions. The first question up is, what is the most single biggest myth about how voters are counted in the US? And what's the truth?
Okay, the biggest myth is that the popular vote is what decides who wins an election. The Republicans have only won the popular vote with a non-incumbent president uh, twice, ever. It was the first Bush who ran. His son ran, of course, later on, and he won with the popular vote the second time after 9/11. But we don't count that because he's an incumbent at that
Right,
point. And then Trump's the other one.
right. I mean,
It hasn't
I think
happened
we all
often.
knew that though. I
Oh,
think
Reagan did it too. Yeah.
yeah, I think most Americans know that. We know that
Yeah.
the popular vote. So is there any other myths about votes and counting and what's the truth? What are the so there's some myths out there. Let's think. Um I'm trying to think of something I had, but I'm pretty clear on how the process works, so I probably am not a good one to to think about a myth that I know about. But sometimes, okay, well, one of the biggest myths was when the red wave or the blue wave or something like that, right? Because all of the votes get counted that come in, and then they vote all of the mail-in ballots last. Some of them are already. I mean, oh, here in
So the way it
Colorado,
works out for
yeah, they already do it.
yeah.
I mean,
So
everything's all
yeah,
at once.
you guys vote by mail in Colorado,
We
correct?
do. Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
no, it's
Some
great. I
people go
voted
to
by
the
mail
polls,
in
but
Washington State. It was awesome.
yeah.
So a lot of that's already been processed.
Yeah.
So like I can speak directly for Texas.
Yeah.
We have early voting.
Hmm.
So at 7:05 when all the polls are closed, they release the early voting numbers. And like in municipal elections, state house level, it can be as much as two-thirds of the vote has already voted. So the odds on you, if you're winning early voting, you probably won your election. Rarely, rarely does a candidate win election on election day. They usually win it in early voting. So, but it does happen.
That's good to
Uh,
know because
so,
then we can monitor that.
and a lot of the more conspiratorial voters tend to vote on election day, and that's on Republican and Democratic sides. So you have certain demographics that, especially if they're older, and the Democratic side, especially if they're people of color, that generation fought really hard for the right to vote.
They sure did.
So they go on and on election day, and it's a thing for
Yeah.
them. It is a real point of pride. I vote on election day. That's when I vote.
Yeah, we
And
watched those.
and then you have a lot of Republicans that don't trust early voting. They don't think their vote's going to count if they don't vote on election day. So you have a myriad of different reasons, but election day can be very weird. And and all politics is local. So the stuff I've seen on election day after 200 campaigns, I can't even tell you. I mean,
Right.
it would take a whole nother show.
Right, right.
But you everything under the sun can happen.
We know. We watched it, right? Let's see. Number two. So who actually prints and secures the ballots, and how do we know they aren't tampered with?
So the printing and and the printing of the ballots is all secured by state. So each state does that. Um, and like in some states like Texas, like Harris County, where Houston sits, has more registered voters than 20 other states in this country. So when you look at statewide races in Texas, you treat Harris County like it's its own state.
Right,
It's
but
big
who
enough. It
who
has a
prints
larger
them?
budget. So
Who
my point is
actually
that they
prints
would
them? Yeah.
handle their own vote, their ballots, right?
Okay.
Because they're so huge that that would be their thing.
So each
Um,
county prints their own and handles their own. Each state
a lot
handles
of
their
states,
own.
and it depends on the state, but like some states do it statewide, some states have it county by county, some states have it regionalized. So it's a myriad of different ways. That's the other thing that precludes us from there being a big conspiracy on the whole printing ballot side of the equation on a national level. Everyone does it different.
Yeah,
So you'd have to
that's the
have
problem we get worried about.
no, different is good because it's easy to form a plan if the plan works the same everywhere. If you have to come up with a completely different conspiracy and plan to operate 50 different ways, the odds on that working are very, very tiny. Also, the odds of getting caught are very, very high. You
Okay.
want diversity
Okay. That's good.
because it
That's good
makes
to
it
know.
more difficult to cookie cutter a plan that will operate
Okay.
nationally. A lot of
So it's
people
very
think,
hard to manipulate how ballots are being printed because everybody does it differently. Okay, well that's good. That's good information. So
yeah.
let's do the how do they know they aren't being tampered with? How do elections know that they're not being tampered
Well,
with? Or is that
it's
just
this.
something that we have to go, trust me, bro?
Well, okay, so again, it's a diversification of implementation. So what you have is 10,000 local jurisdictions nationally. So you'd have to orchestrate 10,000 of those jurisdictions in some conspiracy to manipulate the vote by enough of a percentage that wouldn't show up and was able to do something. And that's I I've been
That's
doing this for 30
astronomically,
years and
mathematically crazy to think about.
impossible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's go to three. How do election officials make sure machines and scanners haven't been hacked before election day?
Well,
Because mathematically, I mean, if they get enough demons in place like they have been, you know what I mean?
so
Let's think
what's
about it.
the
If they get enough,
way that you don't okay, so the problem is the first thing you do is you don't want to get caught doing it, right?
Yeah,
Because you could
well,
do it and then you can't get caught doing it. That's where the paper ballots come in. Your receipt you get. So in Texas, they print out a long receipt of all your answers. Go through that. If you see a problem, like it says something where it should say something else, you take that to the voter red. They'll nix that vote, and you can go vote again, and you'll get another paper ballot. And if that's got the right name on it, then that vote counts,
and then the
not the
Republicans
other
say,
one.
look, they're voting twice.
I don't give. I couldn't care less what the
But do
Republicans
you know what
think.
I'm saying? That's how
They
they're
move their
winning.
mouths and they're lying
They
99% of the
are.
time.
But that's how
I'm
they
not
do
interested.
it.
No, no, their job is to create noise.
Yes,
And they do that very, very
very well.
efficiently.
Agreed.
But they're also a very loud minority.
True, but it works for them apparently. That's the thing is it's working. It's like we know that what they're doing is wrong. We know it's craziness. We know that it's irrelevant, but apparently it's working with them. Somebody's buying it. Somebody's listening and somebody's doing that.
No, people
So
want to
that was
buy what
crazy.
people only buy what you're selling if they need it.
Yeah, they need it
And
to
there's a
be
lot of people in this country that need there to be a conspiracy. They need what the Republicans are selling
right.
because they don't want to accept that in 1982, Ronald Reagan screwed everyone over.
Yeah, yeah.
The moral majority screwed everyone over.
Right. Agreed.
The reason that you can't afford a home, the reason food's so expensive is because of what they did to you in 1982 when you can look at the amount of money the bottom 90% are getting versus the top 10 and it splits like that.
Right.
But they don't want to hear that.
No.
So the Republicans are going to sell them whatever they need to hear. And what they need to hear is that it was everything but that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we know the game. Yeah, well, you're talking to the choir, speaking to the choir. We
I
all
mean,
know the game.
this has always been around the entire existence of our country. They
How
would,
do we convince those voters that are listening to that to switch over?
oh,
That
you
is
don't,
going to be the
you
perfect
don't.
game.
No, no. So 40% of voters vote, 60% don't. I'll take 2 or 3% of that 60, and that group that you were just talking about don't
Yeah,
even matter anymore.
yeah,
I'm not concerned with the Republican vote. I'm not actually concerned about the Democratic vote because it's there. I'm concerned about the apathy vote.
right.
The apathy vote is truly the cancer in our country.
And
It's
if
not
you
those
could
loud
figure out how to get to
Republicans.
them, you would be a genius. That's true. All right.
Well, you know what you got to do? You got to knock on their doors. We know where they all live, and no one's ever asked them to vote.
Well,
That's how you get them.
that's a good information for anybody who's definitely running for an election. Um,
And if they can go to my channel, I have what there's a show on my channel called the Green Bay Experiment,
yeah,
where my team and I went in and went out and talked to those voters that weren't likely to vote during that election cycle for that Supreme Court race up there in Wisconsin. And we had a 16% increase in voter turnout in
that's
Green Bay
fantastic.
specifically, where we ran that experiment. And I
Mm,
got all the math and all the everything to prove it. So,
yep.
so if you're running for office and you're thinking about running for office, go after your base, but go after that other 60. The apathy vote is alive and well, and they just lost their health insurance. They just lost their job. Every time they go to the grocery store, it's expensive, and their schools suck. They have a
Yeah,
reason
they
to
do.
vote.
Yeah, they do. All right, so we're about an hour into a video. I don't want to make the video too long, so I'm going to skip down to the last question. It was number 10. If you could change one rule about how elections are ran in this country to make them more secure or fair, what would it be and why?
Well, it would take a federal law, and it would probably have to be ratified by all 50 states. But I would like a federally run audit of every election in the country. Uh, Fully transparent, standalone, bipartisan elected board you know, 100%. Oh, literally leave no stone unturned as far as what that would look like. So that would include, it would require every state must conduct a post-election audit. They would have risk limiting standards, random sampling, transparent and public observers, strict chain of custody and verification, funding and staff support at the federal and the state level that are communicating amongst each other. That's how I would do it. If I had to pick one thing that would solve, and the thing is, you'd still have that group of people telling us that dead people are voting.
Right.
This would not sway them at all.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I would know for a fact that election's right.
right. And so what kind of program do we have right now
Well,
that
it's all
kind of
state by state.
contradicts what you just want for the whole country?
Well, there's no federal, I mean, there's the FEC, but they're mostly campaign finance related issues they'll deal with, which means, and then it's like Ted Cruz illegally raised, oh God, I forgot the $80 million and he gave it all back, but it takes money to raise money. So if you had the money, you spent
Right.
it, you raised the money. So even if you made 20% off that, and then they slapped him with a $1.5 million fine, which I don't even think he ended up having to pay. So I would put way more teeth in the FEC. But the FEC mostly deals with that kind of stuff.
Right.
There would need to be like a like a federally regulation commission, elections commission, like an FREC or something, a FREC that would go in and freck things up, and that's what it would take. Right now, you have 50 different states and a few different territories, all doing things differently. So, actually, a show I'm currently doing on my channel, the second half drops tomorrow. I'm looking at the primary schedule for all elections. We have states that have 245 days of general election time, and we have states with 45 days of general election time. So there's really not a lot of standards out there. It's even on when you look at the calendar for running and informing voters. Like you've got a million voters sitting in Boston that had 45 days to learn who their elected general election people are going to be. Whereas in Texas, those voters have 245 days to learn who the general election voters are.
So
I
that
mean, there's just,
that brings up that diversity thing. I mean, at one point, how they do their ballots, this, that, and the other, it makes it almost impossible to maybe manipulate
cheat.
that.
Yeah.
However, on the other hand, something consistent in what we call checks and balance, the checks and balances, the balances need to be consolidated and uniform and taken care
Right.
of.
Well, then that calendar opens up different questions. Like, and I post some of these on my channel. If you have an early March primary, that means you really only have to like mid-January to mid-February, 30 days. Because no one pays attention to anything during the holidays. Everybody checks out.
Correct.
Whatever you did before Thanksgiving,
Correct.
great. Hope you knocked on a bunch of doors, collected a lot of data because that's all it's going to be good for. You have 30 days to run your primary to unseat somebody in your party.
Right.
Whereas in Massachusetts, they have almost an entire year to do that. But in Texas, you have 240 days to unseat an incumbent
So
in the opposing party.
so that's a very
But in
interesting.
Massachusetts, you only have 40 days to do that.
Right, that's interesting.
So it's
Why
weird.
would
Some
they
states are
limit
just
it?
easier to unseat incumbents in your party versus the other, and vice versa.
Isn't that manipulation of the system if they had give only this guy a little bit, that guy a lot more? So that's where the voter suppression comes into play on a
Oh, it gets
regular
even
basis.
worse. In June, like basically the last week of May and the first 2 weeks of June, when school's out and everyone goes on vacation, 20 plus state primaries happen. It's the most out of the 22 million, I'm sorry, the 220 million possible voters that could participate in an election, in a primary, full blown, uh, over 20 to 30% of them happen in those 4 weeks. When everyone's getting out of school, we all know how chaotic that is, and everyone's going on vacation.
Yeah.
So if your state has their primary in June, that's manipulation.
Yeah. I agree.
Full stop.
Full stop. So, and we already seen how voter suppression and all of that work, just like gerrymandering, all that. We don't have time to go into all of that. However, I hope you, whoever is watching, I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope you know that a little bit more about our election system. And if you do get involved locally, at least you know where you need or where you would want to get involved, either volunteer or being paid to go out and canvass for an election in your own county. Because we have a lot of Democrats out there that are great and wonderful, and they need help. That's just the bottom line. They need help, and I think this is a good platform to reach a whole bunch of states to get that done. So thank you, Sean, for that, and I think
No problem.
we're gonna leave it there. So thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.